This is the sign for death holocaust because people were destroyed, towns were destroyed, everything was destroyed during the Holocaust. Many people thought at once that I actually was in the Holocaust, but actually I was born in America. People told me some interesting facts about what had happened back then during, as some deaf people had told me what had happened during the Holocaust. I was in shock. I could never dream of anything like this actually happening. People were very thin, they were starving, they were in the camps called concentration camps, but actually in prison there, not actually in the camps. Hearing people think that all the time, and they were just shocked. Really? They were actually, yeah, it actually happened, 1958 or 48, and I did my research until 1980s, when I was involved with the deaf folkers. I gathered up information about deaf folks, folklores and stories and people's experiences and their stories, just a variety of information, funny and sad stories. I collected all this information about deaf people who actually survived it and had experiences there. And then I thought, well, I know 2 or 3 people that I could ask to come up here and share their story and give their vision of what it was like and save these stories. In the 1980s, we went to court, and many deaf survivors they explained what had happened, and later on were able to express their stories. And I wanted to hold on. A lot of deaf survivors are people that are thought of as forgotten people. It wasn't a sweet story. It wasn't nothing. There might be one sentence related to something that happened to somebody who was deaf then. And nobody really gave them much thought. But we need to tell the world that we do have some involvement during this Holocaust. We as the deaf culture have a history. But I wanted to stop and show you 2 survivors, their stories. One person, he learned about what had happened from his parents, so through his parents. And then another person you'll see on here is his ideas and information that he got from different survivors. And then I'll give you more information as we go along. And then you guys can ask me questions. So we'll go till about 9, and then we can start with this videotape. Hi, I am from Deaf Mosaic. My name is Gil. I'm going to be your host for the program tonight. I wanted to talk about deaf people, and one of the people that I want to talk about is Mr. Poland. During a terrible time during his life, it was a very dangerous time. Stanley was captured and his family and were put into a concentration camp. Now his mother, she's a very wonderful woman, and she loved her son and wanted to keep him safe. And well, here's their story. Do you remember what happened that night? No, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow we'll talk about it tomorrow. Oh, this tastes delicious. In 1943, I was 4 years old. My mother and a bunch of other people were going towards this train to get on to head us to a concentration camp. We were hungry, we were thin, we were starving. And the German soldiers were pushing us, and they had guns, and they were hitting us, and they would hit us on the back of our heads, and they would close us into these trains and take us to the concentration camp. My mother, she had taught me not to scream because I couldn't hear. So I was in a panic, and I had to be very quiet. And I remember I was squeezing her hand. I just squeezed it, and that meant that I needed to keep quiet. There was people that were talking with funny voices, and they would hear a funny voice and they would look over at me. That people started getting curious because my voice sounded different, so I had to be quiet. They were looking for somebody that had a German accent or a Jewish accent, so I had to keep quiet. The reason that we were all lined up because Germany and the Germans were forcing us to get circumcised. Because as a Jew, we didn't get circumcised. Protestants and all of them, they did. And so they would pick us all out, all the Jewish boys, and they would line us up in a line and make us take our pants off and get circumcised, and they would shoot the ones that refused.